Hello and welcome back to the Double Swing. Yes, it's unfortunately time for the final episode of the Double Swing related to the Blast Austin Major. Of course, it might be the end of the season, but it's not the end of the show. We've got another full 6-month schedule lined up behind this. But we are just going to be wrapping up the major here. The playoff bracket is set. It's a bit awkward. It's a bit confusing in terms of how the favourites have ended up all on one half and the underdogs all on the other one. So we decided to scrap the titles. We're just going to pick two teams each and see what comes out the other end. Before we do that, let's quickly recap stage 3 because finally, I didn't suck. It's really nice. I'm going to be honest. It's really nice. After stage 1 and stage 2, I got a combined 2 points. So I needed
A bit
this.
more predictable, at least. You know,
Yeah, it was.
We've had some difficulties so far this major. Happy that it was a bit more predictable.
Yeah, stage 3, the only stage where we, between the three pickers, managed to get every single team that went through, which is pretty incredible. Myself and our guest, B-Dog, getting 3 points. Yumi, only 2. Finally, he falls. Finally. Doesn't win one of the segments.
Yeah, you can't win them all.
You can't. You really can't. But this one, I think, pretty up for grabs. I mean, there's only 8 teams to pick between 2 picks, so we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, the most impressive... the most interesting, I think, failure from stage 3 might have been Aurora. I thought you were pretty locked in on that. I was one of the few, I guess, not few, but I guess there were a few people who were on the anti-Aurora train. I thought they'd be fine. You know, it's a group stage. Xantara's playing good CS. That's pretty much all you need to get some results. I think it was Thorin called it. They'd missed playoffs like all of 6 months ago on Hot Take Point Made. Pretty great pull. Well, maybe not 6 months ago, but, you know, a pretty good pull from deep in the bag, that one. I didn't believe it. I didn't see it. But aside from that, a lot of favourites. A lot of favourites making it through. Basically, the only favourite we're missing fell down before this stage even happened in Falcons. So, yeah, thankfully, a pretty predictable section. I assume you got your pick and picks for this one. You actually got the point.
I don't even think so.
Really? How'd you manage that?
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, I got a total of like 3 picks right because I think VP in there. I had Aurora, I had Spirit, I had Furia, but they were all 3-2s. I had Na'Vi. Na'Vi and MongolZ the only 1 points I actually really got, and then I have like Vitality and Mouse in 3-0. So
Oh,
I got quite a lot of the teams right. I just, inappropriate order.
you know, because I had Spirit 3-0. I went predictable, so I just went with the standard stock Vitality Spirit. The 2 teams I thought were best, my 3-0, and then managed to get a accumulation of, I think I got 4 or 5 in the actual 6 teams you picked, so that worked out nicely. But yeah, you've left me first pick for playoffs. I'm not going to be controversial. I'm not going to be unpredictable. I'm not going to try and swindle you, be like, aha, secretly, Pain are the best pick. No. I'm going to take the odds-on favourite to win the major. The team have been odds-on favourite to win the major pretty much since the end of the second event of the season, which was that Katowice? Was it that early? Straight after Blast Bounty? Was it Katowice?
I believe it was.
Yeah,
I think
so
you're right.
Pretty much since then, they've been favourite to win this major. I see no reason to stop believing in that. Yeah, obviously, we all know what's good about Vitality at this point. I don't think it's a mystery. What could possibly be a shortcoming, I'm going to have to basically just talk about them in a more interesting way than just what they're good at. These matchups are not easy. They do have to go through a pretty tough gauntlet of teams. The only team they have managed to avoid, really, that they've had any sort of struggle with over this season here, is Falcons. Falcons, they've played in finals, they've played some closer series. They don't have to play them in this run. Probably they're going to have to play Spirit, I'd guess. But either way, Spirit or Mouse is a team they've played in grand finals, or they've played in playoffs in general, who have been more of a challenge. Mouse especially, that have taken them all 5 in big grand finals. But Spirit, I think, are the hottest team at this major. They're the team who have the most dangerous individual. So Vitality are going to have to be pretty elite. You know, they can't afford to take a step back coming into these playoffs. I think there's very little chance of that. We haven't seen them really ever take their foot off the gas this year. Like when they've made it to a big game. Sure, the grand finals have looked sometimes tough, but those are the biggest of the big. The playoff runs in themselves leading up to it have been resoundingly one-sided. So I have faith in them to keep that up. In that grand final, depends on their opponent. Things could get tricky. Things could get odd, especially the reduced number of maps. They can't claw it back from down 2-1. 2-1 and it's over. So we'll have to see how that goes. But for me, it'd be silly not to pick the team with the best player in the world. One of the best rifle cores supporting him in the world. Maybe arguably the best rifle core you could ask for in terms of well-roundedness. I think I did my tier list yesterday. Thank you for everyone for clicking on that. I did have them as having 2 star riflers and then 2 supportive gods, like role gods, players who play beyond even their roles. So that's unfair. You don't need multiple superstars if you have that surrounding one superstar. So I'm very happy with Vitality as my first pick. I don't think there's any need to overthink it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. I don't disagree with you either. I mean the concept of them having, it's not like Mezzy was always a great fit on this Vitality. I think the ROPS addition and just understanding like a little like structural dynamic that they can often have on the map has actually helped Mezzy just flourish in his role a bit more. And I think without that, maybe you do have some kind of deficit or weak link, because I think it's, part of the reason Apex struggled on CT sides as well is that he would actually cheat rotates a lot, especially if it was like Mezzy's bomb site. I'd catch him doing it at least. And it felt like there was a little loss of faith, and then now they're just there's full faith in everybody now. So they're not only doing well individually, like the macro looks good. There's no real complaints you can have for Vitality other than the games are getting closer the more that they're appearing in grand finals. And weirdly enough, they haven't actually encountered Na'Vi basically all year. So this will be
Na'Vi basically haven't been good enough to face them all year. That's been the problem, right?
If you don't make it to a grand finals, you're not gonna be destined to face them, I suppose. But not even in like in a group stage or something, even with them descending the rankings, I thought there was a possibility of that at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the only thing for Vitality is whether or not they let the pressure of the major get to them at all. I think that's the one picking point you can have, because Flames is not won a major, Mezzy is not won a major. These are pieces that will want obviously to get their hands on it, but they don't have the luxury of experience, especially when expectations are that you will win it and that you kind of crown your era properly. I think ROPS will be able to deal with that easier. I'm not even necessarily sure that ZywOo can necessarily handle that level of expectation, given for the longest time they've always been a team that are contenders, but never this good as favorites.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of Go, we could have had like a conversation about them maybe doing it, but it was the end of Go. There was no opportunity to show it. So this will be the opportunity to really be etched into history as the era team. Like, this is the Vitality era. They won this many events straight. They won this many games straight. They won the major to cap it all off. Then went into the next season and hopefully kept playing great CS. Although hopefully as well, the longer an era goes, the more I'm like, I need someone to break this up.
Yeah.
Like, I need the cycle. I need to go back to parity for a bit. Then I need someone else to emerge on top. You
can have an era, but you can also have a rival that are the best. That is most likely to be Falcons coming into the next season. But
yeah, we hope so. We hope the emergence of Kyosuke will be a successful one. We hope that's a team that goes neck to neck, like shoulder to shoulder with them. They battle it out for a while, and then we'll see what comes out of the back end. But no, for now, this needs to be the Vitality one. It kind of needs to be. Capital needs. I do remember something I want to just... This is a personal petty grievance, but it's a comment I received, and it's something people seem to have misunderstood, or at least chosen to misunderstand about a lot of my ZywOo talk.
Right.
Like, he is not... Like, people don't seem to understand the stats. He is not outputting the kind of fragging that Donk is. But that's not how we make a best player case explicitly. Like, we don't just have to go by KPR. KPR is a great stat. Really great stat. But it's not the only stat we need. And there's a lot of nuance in terms of how a player plays that we talk about. And that's why ZywOo is considered by many, including myself, the best player right now. Because his style of play is superstar tier, whilst at times sacrificial, whilst at times, almost role player-esque. But no matter the weapon, no matter the situation, no matter the role he's expected to perform, he does it at the best, like in the best possible way, at the highest level. So I feel like that's often misunderstood. Like, there's more to it than just the fragging. And yeah, hopefully we see examples of all of that in this run.
Yeah, I guess we don't see like limit testing by Zywoo. He's already tested limits for however long in his career,
I mean,
and
his
even
limit
then
test
done
right
so
now is
very
how many
safely.
years can you have a .8 KPI in a row? Like,
Yeah,
which he has basically had his entire career. Like, I don't think there's a full year where he's not at least .8, which is insane. But remember, Donk is averaging for the year .95. No, that's not a comparable thing. That's insane.
yeah.
That's
I think
game breaking.
I think the hard part for players or for anyone talking about like the best this year, it actually does become hard to ignore the fact that I mean Donk is doing as well as he is without the results necessarily to speak for it. You know,
Yeah,
he's getting these
results are
types
always
of
going to be the
results.
red flag, like the question mark.
Yeah,
But what about the winning? And I've always had that frustration with people when they basically, oftentimes, if you look historically in traditional sports, MVPs were given off the back of just winning, which always made no sense because individuals versus teams should be considered two separate things. But then when we compare these two players, you're like, yeah, but he's doing this and maintaining the stats and doing it in grand final after grand final after grand final. And in the grand final, every time he's facing the best team and he's winning. Like, there's got to be something to it. There is an element of that has to factor in, I think.
yeah. So I guess good job, Donk. Keep it up. But also, if you want to actually be in the top three conversation properly, Spirit do need to get their affairs in order.
Well, he's in the top three conversation. It's just, does he want to be top one? If he's top one, he needs to win some shit. Like, really, this year.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I get with the way that HLTV often organize themselves, but they've actually placed players lower than you would expect, mainly because
Recently,
of a lack of wins. You know, before we could talk about players like Simple, you know, basically being the world's best player, but not winning shit.
2016 was the most frustrating, like, 2016 or 17, where Simple for me was, I'd watched it as a fan, not as an analyst, and for me, Simple was the best player. Then he came to the HLTV top 20, he was like 7th. Like, you cannot fucking tell me. I have eyes that work. There are not 6 players better than this man in the world right now. I'll give you one if you want. If you want to give it to KoldzZero, I'll give you that. But you couldn't have 6.
I think honestly, it just came down to like HLTV at a certain point were maybe a little tired of receiving the scrutiny of, you know, this is a subjective claim that you're making this guy the best player in the world, or this is a subjective claim that you've done that, and it's, you know, they've gone stricter by the numbers or like numbers, accomplishments. That way they have a very clear criteria.
They have, but I want to give them credit. They have tempered that. Like, there has been, like, there was a lot of counter pushback, especially around the time Astralis had 5 players basically in the top 20, and that was absurd. So there has been like a sort of like a peak of this sort of thinking of like, we have to have accomplishments, we have to have something to back it up, back to a bit more of a, yes, you have to be individually a good player to be in the top 20. You can't just be the 5th best player on the best team. Which I give them credit for. I've given them credit for a couple times. And then there's Wonderful last year, which was wrong. But yeah, that's an ebb and flow to that I think will continue to repeat. But yeah, should we get your pick in?
Yeah, I'm just going to go with Spirit. They're on the same side of the bracket, which is a little bit of a shame, but I don't know. I kind of offered you first pick because I don't know, something about this major run for Vitality is giving me the heebie-jeebies.
Okay.
Like, I just expect it to go wrong. And I think Spirit are the perfect team to try and do that.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's, you know, Shiro in the way that he's been playing and, you know, kind of coming out of his shell. I don't even know if that's out of necessity or if it's been encouraged, but providing Donk some help and some assistance is nice because it's actually very rare that we've seen Spirit have Zontix, Donk, and Shiro kind of all doing quite a lot. Like, I feel like there's a good amount of activity coming out from the core, and that's maybe partially due to some of the issues that Magix himself has had. For example, you know, it felt like there was an interchangeability between Zontix and Magix about whether or not they could kind of step up. You just don't see Magix in these games very often, and he'll be set up for like a mid-round play, and you just you just know he's not getting a kill. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I just think the core right now is feeling good. It's feeling strong. As much as I think Mals are a better, like probably a more composed team by now for this type of a stage. I just was not impressed with Mals coming out of stage 3. They
Yeah.
they probably deserved to go 0-3, even if they're a team that deserved to be in the playoffs, just based on the quality of
Yeah.
game they provided us. So
Yeah, I have to agree.
uh,
I know that a lot of people have pointed out to me, like, oh, but the matchups. Maus, when they played Spirit, they've been able to beat them time and time again. It's like, yeah, great. Recent form, what I've just watched, that's not how Maus are playing right now. And I mentioned it in the past, like when they first triumphed over Spirit this year, I said that's not repeatable. Like the way they beat them in that game wasn't repeatable. And the next time they beat them was completely different. And then the way they've been playing this time doesn't match either of them. Like it's just been a very flaccid sort of Maus at this event. So no, I've struggled to pick Maus as well. I do think Spirit are the bogey team. And you're entirely right. And the conditions for them beating them are somewhat there. Because so far at the major, look who's not fucking whiffing everything. Magix. Like he's actually had a couple tidy maps.
yeah,
It's a very small sample size. They went 3-0, they played 4 maps.
and they played, Pain, Lin Vision,
No.
Navi. It's not. We're not setting the bar particularly high, especially that Navi train where they got blown out. It doesn't. Yeah.
But in the close map, Magix was still productive, and he's been productive in all 4 maps they've played, and that's something you can't typically expect. You can't expect that. That's why the pro Magix sort of brigade after the last major they won, the grand final, was a bit absurd because we knew we wouldn't get this version of Magix time and time again. Like if we would, this would have been the Spirit era. We wouldn't be talking about Navi, about Vitality rather having won so many straight events, and probably last year we wouldn't have been talking about Navi's ridiculous grand finals era. Like it would have been a far more dominant Spirit. But at least he's showing us the signs here that he might be repeating that sort of one-off. And I think that's very positive if you're a Spirit fan. Now, of course, you can always try to win with just more Donk and more Shiro. But realistically, we've seen them in the past. They do need someone else to be there. Like, it cannot be the 1.7 rated Donk Spirit Katowice. Like, that's just not a thing that they've shown he can repeat. That's a ridiculous carry job even he struggles to maintain, despite his year-on average stats being literally unprecedented and ungodly.
I do think as well and I think we may have talked about this previously. I think with Duncan about spirits and the sort of timeline for the team. Like this major, if they don't make the grand finals, hell, if they don't win the major, even you could probably see Magic's gone. Like won the last major, fine. They'll happily take that. They'll extend the Magic's lifeline considering how hard he carried. But Spirit are the type of organization that have done that before, where it's like, oh, you won some tournaments, cool, we'll give you some time, but if it ain't working, it ain't working, and we're gonna make some changes. Which is why I'm kind of surprised at like the idea that they will sell Kioske.
Always, that kind of boggles the mind.
Because I think there's a potential return on investment, but I don't know how much. Yeah, what their long-term plans are. Also, whether you can outcompete what the Falcons are offering, for example.
In terms of salary, you probably can't, but no one's forcing you to sell him for any price. As long as he's under contract.
Yeah, but he could also bench himself, I think. And then
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know the academy players' contracts, what they look like. I doubt they're very player centric, to be real. But they got what, $2.5 million, pretty much. Yeah, I think that's exactly what I predicted he'd cost. Still kind of chuffed about that. When I found out the exact figure, I was like, word for word, I knew it'd be that price. Like that's just what we're at. That's where we're at now with that level of talent. But the reason they're not going to keep him and not play him in a Magic's role, I know why. They want the Magic's role to be this sort of very composed, supportive element. And Kyosuke, by POV, is none of those things. Composed or supportive.
I don't think it's unreasonable to sort of say that Kyosuke could take Donk roles, Donk could take Zontic's roles,
Oh,
or like
agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
I think
But they're
there's
clearly not on that page.
yeah.
Otherwise, we'd have seen this happen a long time ago. They really don't believe in that. So I don't think there's any chance that... Well, there wasn't any chance that they actually went for it. And we called them stupid. We lambasted them for it. But they've decided to commit to this roster. Now, the question is, will it be enough to overcome Vitality? Like, what they've shown us this year? So far, it hasn't really even been enough to beat MongolZ in the big events over and over again. But this event, the prior event coming into it as well, they looked really strong. They were really rolling. Important part of that is the more assertive Shiro. Like a Shiro that does take more opening attempts, does take the occasional tougher peak. It's kind of like... yeah, we'll get into that comparison in a second, but it is an interesting dynamic we're seeing. So I do think there's aspects that are positive, aspects that are leaning me towards agreeing with you that this upset's very real, and it's one of the few upsets I would have called, aside from one of those quarterfinals. I think Spirit triumphing over Vitality in the semi might be one of the more reasonable upsets to predict.
Yeah, I think also like even in this MongolZ, like the best thing about them for me has been the emergence of Torji as like a force to be reckoned with. Like nobody, it feels like he's got like a freedom, especially on CT sides, to be
it's
hyper dynamic and
CT. He must be just calling, right? Like he's just
no, he calls himself, I think.
Yeah.
But he's damn good at it, and he has been for basically all of this year since the Brolin change, and then you come into this stage of the major, and he's just so average, and even below average. You know, we're starting to have this conversation about him within top 5s or top 3s in terms of just like the AWP role, and stage 3 made it seem like that whole narrative was actually very stupid. Just it wasn't impressive.
It wasn't, and the problem is, again, actually, if you just look at the CT halves, the numbers bear out okay, but compared to what we've seen this year, okay has not been his CT side. His CT sides have been outstanding.
They're like carrying them, basically.
Yeah, he carries through the CT sides. And the problem has been, and was explicitly true here in Stage 3, what the fuck do you expect from Torji on T side? Like, is he what, a nade dispenser? He doesn't actually do that much in terms of util. He does, a normal amount for his role. He's not picking players off on the AWP. He's not being more aggressive in that sense, taking those are more threatening lines that some other AWPers do. The Molodoys of the world do. Like they don't wait for the game to come to them. They don't wait for a clutch to actually go do something. So there is a problem of passivity from Torji, but it's been a problem forever. Like his T side has always been far weaker than his CT side. Going back to academy days, his academy play was very much the same. Like CT side, lots of ideas, individual brilliance, playmaking was all there. Struggled on the T side to really make something of himself, and a part of that was, I keep fighting people on this, he's not a great rifler. Like he really isn't.
Sure.
And so between not great rifling, overly passive AWPing, his T sides have lacked. So yeah, no, this MongolZ has been in no small part because of Torji's weaknesses in this event. This MongolZ has been very underwhelming.
I think just currently in a state of volatility, I think is kind of fair to say. Even though they've done very well in a lot of the events leading up to this event, again, maybe burdened by expectations, because MongolZ will know that Falcons, MongolZ, Spirit are the only realistic conversations we can have in the current ecosystem to who can win the major outside of Vitality.
Yeah, and then we see this bracket. It's like, oh, okay, maybe there's one team on the other side. Maybe.
Yeah, potentially.
When the bracket works out like this,
but there's also, it just happened to be that a certain team has maybe been improving with the the caliber to boot. So
yeah, speaking of, I've got another pick.
Yep.
And I'm not going to be overly creative. I'm not going to be overly controversial. I'm going to take FaZe. I think they have the clearest run to the grand final of anyone. They have to face MongolZ, who are renowned for choking against not only choking on stage, but also choking in playoff matchups with specific teams, especially teams with big rep, big name, big aura. that is exactly what this FaZe team is. Like, it's rep and aura all the way through. Like, there's not a lot of, like, based on this last season, not much else to go off of. It's not, they've been playing great CS, the chemistry's all there. No, it was terrible. They made a cut and took a Hail Mary to try and make this major run work. And now it looks like it's working. Like, it didn't really, they didn't super
really
impress
click
me at the first event, and especially, you know, a lot of people want to be super hyped for Simple, and that's why I did it. Explicitly, I had a live stream just to check where that was and realized he's cocking things up left, right, and center.
Sure.
This event, stage 2, I was still correct to be very, very doubtful. He had back-to-back horrendous series where everything I'd complained about came back to bite him again, where it's just like, yeah, he thinks he's Old Simple. He's putting himself in positions that Old Simple would have won the round off of, but he's not Old Simple. Like, he's not that classic dominating player who can whiff his first shot, re-peek into 3 people, hit it so fast that he still gets back into cover in time, and then swings again to get the next kill. Like, he's not that guy right now. So that was, I still felt vindicated in that take. Stage 3, a lot of people were saying I look like an idiot. So all of a sudden, stage 3 knows 1.35 rated. Like, this is Old Simple, vintage Simple. And I watched the demos. Fair enough. He's heated up. He had a streak of pretty vintage Simple. The Mongol series started horrifically. We were watching through it, and he's just like, at one point, 4-7 or 3-7. And it's been a nightmare. Like, he's just not in the right places, not looking the right way, whiffing shots that would have got him great openings, easy kills, a lot of problems. But then he starts, you know, heating up a bit, lands some shots, and then all of a sudden, second map, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That CT side on Anubis, some outstanding play. So between him, this emergence of Frozen, I think this year, like with the addition of Elige, the removal of a more passive rifler in ROPS, has basically left him as the one definite closer. Like, there is no contest for the role anymore. He can wait, like bide his time, find his moment, and go for the plays he wants to go for. And something else that's brought out as well in this version of FaZe is a higher attempt rate in these 2vx, 3vx scenarios.
Sure.
Especially with the Simple edition, because Simple's going to be like, fuck you mean save? I'm better than these people. And Frozen, he usually doesn't have that attitude. He really doesn't. He plays the odds. He knows 2v4. I'm not going to take it. All of a sudden, he's also looking for those fights, taking those contact duels and landing shots and bringing those rounds in. So this is a combination that has brought out the best in him. Across the year, I mean, it was a bit covered by the fact that the team overall were bad. They didn't really have that fire, and he put up his numbers, but it wasn't the same empty calorie Frozen that we'd seen before. I felt that. I saw that coming, and then now we've really seen it unleashed. As the teams come together, they've started playing great CS. He's dominating, and I love it. This phase is as dangerous as they come. They've got a free run to the grand final. It's only 3 maps, folks. It could happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think this is unreasonable given the current trajectory of the team. I mean, I still saw in stage 3, like, yeah, sure, we had these greater flashes of, you know, like you're saying, prime looking Simple, or at least Simple-esque plays. But you also still saw quite a few of the flaws or drawbacks of playing in that way. You know, sometimes missing timings, sometimes, you know, stepping a touch too soon, or early into like a late, say it's like 30, 40 seconds into a round. Sometimes, you know, he wants to be an initiative driver and he just take the wrong timing just as, you know, an exec's coming. You know, those are small things where I felt like, you know, Simple of old, he would have put himself in the right, like his forecasting was much better. He's able to anticipate way better. Which is something, you know, I'm sure could still improve and could still happen. But I think, you know, just to I guess, to back up what you're saying, yeah, just having another player that plays with tempo is very beneficial for this team. Like you said, Frozen and ROPS, if they were in like 3v4s, they're just such like low tempo players that you need someone to get everybody a move on. So, and it felt like Karrigan almost didn't have control of whether or not his pieces were doing things. Yeah, all he has to do is like hold the leash, so to speak, for Simple from every so often, 1 round at a time, perhaps, because he'll be someone that wants to take fights. So, you know, I think it's good. I think Elige has been more comfortable with the transition as well, given that there was a lot of expectation on him to be an impact player, and almost like an entry piece. And it just seems like the vibe and the atmosphere is very good in FaZe since the simple move. Maybe because they don't have expectations, given how recent a change it is. Maybe it's because it's just simple, but it seems like everyone's having a good time playing as well, which is actually really nice to see as well. You know,
A happy phase, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like we hit like prime depression phase for a while, and it was, I don't know, it was just rough to watch. And I've been down on Karrigan for a bit, you know, kind of also like Frozen, he could be a better player, Elige could be a better player. Now things are kind of looking up, and if nothing else, even making it to the quarterfinals is already a noted improvement and something that they can look forward to for the following season if they retain Simple. Who knows?
Yeah, they should. I think already they should. If they can, that's always a question as well. I don't know what the contract situation is. I don't know what's going on back there.
The loans and everything, yeah.
Yeah, so if they can extend the loan, you know, because I'm not sure if the contract runs out by the end of the season, sure, try and sign him for free. But if you have to just extend the loan, keep taking the salary on, it's usually how loans work. That could be the option. That could be the play for them. I think they are. Yeah, they're looking way more confident right now. And a part of that, yeah, you're right in saying it could be the expectations, but I think a part of it is having that guy who is boisterous, like very almost arrogant, but who takes also a lot of the attention, like from the outside world. Like a lot of people coming in to talk to them now, it's not about talking, oh, why'd you lose? It's more about what's Simple like? And can we talk to Simple? All of a sudden, that's just a different atmosphere around the team. And I think Simple's used to being that guy, doesn't mind being that guy. Actually, probably quite happy to be back to being that guy. And then the rest of the team gets to, you know, kind of step a bit out of the limelight in terms of all the negativity they've had recently, and kind of just enjoy the positive vibes that's kind of brought along with it.
Respectfully, though, Karrigan is effectively doing the snacks calling on this team. Like, I've seen a lot of these rounds look like they should not come together, but they do because of who is on the roster. You know, Rain has had a pretty solid event as well, alongside all this. Like the roster is just doing well individually across the board, and so Karrigan, you know, has made some good calls. I won't pretend like he's, you know, called a terrible stage, but he's not. You know, this isn't a controlling Karrigan.
This isn't prime Karrigan, no.
You don't necessarily need it to be, but you know, if that's the same sort of conversation I can have about snacks, then, you know, I think it's also fair for Karrigan, considering he's got very, very strong pieces that surround him here. Yeah,
really strong individuals, playmakers, and then himself. Lord, it's been one of the worst runs as far as like fragging he's ever had. His firepower's down to a 1. I just checked. I was like, I know his fragging's bad. How bad is it? It's a 1. Like he's just not up there. But that's been the point for a lot of this year. Has been how's the Karrigan calling looking, rather than necessarily
just figuring it out.
Individuals, like, yeah, how's he adjusting to this? Can he make it work? For a while, he really wasn't. Like, the calls were not great, but also he wasn't helped by the fact that it's like, hey, Rain and Elige kind of both are not quite in their right spots. Like, Elige, we've given him some spots. It's not quite at all of them, and there seems to be sometimes when I'm watching him, it's like he's not got the same support network he did in Complexity, and then Rain. He's just been taking off a lot of his spots just outright, and now he's got to sometimes be a support to specifically Elige, and sometimes he's got to do some anchoring stuff that he doesn't want to do. So there's just a lot of uncomfortable players, like a lot of uncomfortable players, and the one player who wasn't, obviously, all this time was Frozen, but now that everyone else is locking in, yeah, he can be a weaker caller and still win maps. Like, he can still be a more hands-off caller and win maps, and that's great.
Yeah, it's all vibes and atmosphere right now for FaZe, so...
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need.
I respect the choice, and I could look to counter you immediately, but I'm gonna actually hedge my bets on the other side of the bracket.
Oh Lord!
Shit, I'm going with it's the same side of the bracket, but it's actually I'm just gonna go with Furia.
Oh, okay. I think you're about to do something real weird. But yeah, okay.
No, I think I'm just leaning in on, you know, the belief in that this roster was likely to work. I mean, with the main thing was communication and whether or not MongolZ could actually transition into tier 1 level Counter-Strike properly, or actually still be as important. You know, we see a lot of these these up and comers look really flashy and make all these crazy plays in tier 2, but then the lights get a little too bright, and those players recede, or like the expectations get to them. MongolZ look great. Yakindar's kind of back. I'm not necessarily sure we're getting prime Keserato or Yuri as a pair, but they're both doing good enough. And I've actually really respected the Fallen calling. It's a little bit more bursty, sometimes a bit all in, but I almost like the I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I like the variety, but I almost appreciate the rhythm he's coming into these games with, like how he's going to implement that variety. And I just think the initial game planning from Furia looks quite good right now. And so I'm just gonna continue to bank on them. You kind of stole them from me in stage 3, which I would have definitely liked to have had instead of being forced into getting Aurora. But yeah, I think this team is kind of on an interesting path right now.
Yeah, I don't think I was expecting this to work in the way it has. I gave it a potential to work. Like when I first saw it pop up, I was like, it could, but you're taking some massive gambles as far as betting on both a kid, a tier 3 kid really, and Yekindar. Like that's a bloody hell, bro. Like how many dice do you want to roll for your own fate? Like that's a lot of risk. But it's worked out beautifully as far as Yekindar coming back with maybe not quite prime Yekindar looking form, but close to it, like really strong. MongolZ, they've done the right thing and not tried to overwhelm him, I think, and kept a lot of his kind of positions, his roles, like simple. So he's able to min-max kind of himself in the way he has done in the past. Like in the video I made about him, I called it like MongolZ the hero. That's kind of like the MongolZ you see in these low-level games. Like he's the one with the armor P250, he's the one with the dualies, he's the one getting his AWP dropped whenever he wants it. He's the guy when
main character syndrome.
Yeah, it really is. Like he gets to on T side, he takes his opening pick, and then after that, you want to flash? No, not really. He's just lingering around looking for the fights he wants to look for. Then late round, you want a 2v4 one? All right, who are these bums? 0 to... Fuck it. Here's a triple kill. Like, that was kind of the MongolZ of tier 3. Aspects of that remain. They've kind of, not entirely, but a little bit tempered the AWP dominance that he had. Like, because he was one of the few players you'd see, like, you'd switch from CT side to T side, and his AWP KPR or sniper KPR would go down like 0.1, from like 0.56 to 0.46. A lot of top tier AWPers are still only at 0.4 on CT side. Like they're rifling so much. He just didn't rifle. And they've tempered it a bit. Like he does rifle a bit more on Furia, especially on T side. CT side he's still one trick pony pretty much. But it's working kind of because he can rifle. Like there were times on that Amcal roster, he's rifling and he's the best rifler. But he knows what his real talent is. And that's the big green. So they've enabled him, and that's been awesome. Keserato Yuri don't need to be their best selves with this sort of firepower on the team and the way everything's working. But they've been good. Like I can't say they've been bad players. Like that's the confusing part. Like they're not stars. It feels weird to talk about them as role players, but they kind of are, just filling in the roles, hitting the shots they need to hit, and that makes it all click.
I think that's what makes it makes it easier for me to look at this and think, well, the team itself just feels role-wise very, very coherent, and also that the calling isn't, terrible or outrageous. Is that it has been a very holistic sort of approach for Furia to win these games. Whether MongolZ definitely steals the show in some of these matchups, but in the games where he is slightly behind, Yakindar's having a solid game, or Keserato is having closing some of these rounds to high efficacy. So I just think they've got some good win conditions. They maybe are leaning into a bit of a honeymoon period with the roster.
Potentially.
I think there's probably going to be greater growing pains as they try and add layers of complexity. But I think they've kind of got an alley-oop with Pain in the first round. One to make it to the semifinals. But then after that, who knows?
Yeah, I was complaining about, I think it might have been specifically Furia in stage 1 or 2. They managed to go through, they go down 0-1, then played 3 Brazilian teams. I was like, oh, okay. We'll see how that lasts. Okay, they get to playoffs, they get a Brazilian team again. It's kind of they've gotten a lot of luck with the way the draws have worked out. Bit silly. Yeah, no, that's a great opportunity for them. I think they should be. They're my pick to make the semis out of that matchup. Obviously, I think at that point they just don't have what it takes to beat either FaZe or Mongols. It's just if they do get to face Mongols, you never know with the pressure of the situation. Like, I think that's for them as the path to the grand final is getting to play Mongols in the semi. But no, hopefully they keep it together, stay composed in that quarterfinal. Don't get completely anti-stratted by Pain, because that could always be a problem given they are fresh. They are, a new team without too many weeks of prep.
But Pain themselves have not seemed the best coming into this part of the tournament, so who's to say they don't also domestic matchups.
Domestics are domestics, aren't they? Yeah. It's always a difficult one to predict, but I like Furia to make semis. I don't think they go any deeper. There's conditions where they do. Let's put it that way. Maybe, hey, the best way it happens, they make a grand final off the back of a MongolZ god tier run. That'd be cool. Someone who was a big MongolZ guy, even in the months leading up to my actual full prospects video, I was touting his name as one of the big talents for me. Immediately as soon as he started coming into Amcal, I was like, yeah, we got 2 real tier 2 star riflers coming up. It's Grix and MongolZ. That's the duo you have to pay attention to. It'd be awesome for me if they just cruised through off the back of his carry, but unlikely. Let's get into some of these other teams, because some of the other teams do need attention.
We have kind of talked about most of them.
We've talked about Mouse. We've talked...
Yeah.
We kind of talked
a little bit about Mongols.
I think we could do it. It's a tradition. We could do with talking about Mongols a bit.
Sure.
What's the read here? Is it quite simply the narrative remains the Mongols big stage? We just don't see them winning the big matchup.
I have such big reservations about the scalability of this team, because I think they are almost getting capped by the ceiling of these players. I think has been reached. I actually cannot rely on Senzu. I can't even really rely on 9-10 sometimes in these series, because both of them are actually want to make plays in the mid-round players, and neither of them are consistent enough where they can actually look at players like Techno or Mizzino and figuring out where their impact is going to come from. I just think from the front end, the Mongols can beat anybody. I just know that they're not going to beat just anybody. When you get into the top 5 conversation, just because I know Senzu will have a terrible start, or he might have too good a start. There's almost no happy middle ground that's hit between those two as star players, and I think Blitz has a really hard time kind of figuring out what the next thing is to do after that doesn't work, because it's happened so many times. And he'll look over his shoulder and be like, Techno, you've been with the gang for so long, I know you can win your shot, your kill in your spots. And then Techno just doesn't.
Or Techno just walked through a smoke for some fucking reason.
Yes.
So annoying to watch him this year.
But I think he, Blitz will try and lean on someone like Techno to be like, at the moment nothing's working. We need something to happen, and Techno will go, hold my beer. He'll walk through the smoke and he'll be like, that didn't work. I'm out of ideas, guys. It's complicated, I think.
It is for me, and they have a stylistic thing where they don't quite look like a lot of other teams. They'll play what I call Scooby-Doo Counter-Strike a lot more than everyone else. Split up and search for clues. You'll see them spread across the map far more than other teams do right now. And then you'll see occasionally, on timing, or sometimes with a bit of setup, you'll see a certain fight taken. But it's always very disconnected. And the trading, kind of falls off a cliff in that sense. They don't have a lot of mid-round in-default trading going on.
Sure.
Is the way to put it. That's almost become a problem for them. Because if you're hitting the shots, holy shit, what's the other team going to do? A guy has just appeared here and shot someone in the head. But I know I can't start running off because I know there's a guy probably lurking there. Probably a guy over here as well. So it can be incredibly hard to play against. It can really pull you apart, just devastate you, confuse you. But at the same time, if you're not hitting the shots, you're just like idiots. And you just die one by one, and then it's a panic group up trying to make a 4-on-5 happen, maybe even a 3-on-4, and you're like, it's desperate. So I do think they have a stylistic issue at times, where they, in an attempt to make the most of their individuals and their individual strengths and potentially sometimes limitations, they do get kind of boom or busted, like by themselves. Like they do it to themselves. So yeah, that's my reservation with Mongols. Obviously, if they boom, yeah, fuck it. They could beat Vitality. They won't, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, and so to be honest, I've seen the news today. Yami's been benched.
That might be for other reasons.
Yeah, it could be for other reasons.
We all know he's been implicated in certain things.
There have been interesting reports coming out of Mongolia, at the very least. So,
yeah.
But when you see talent in the Mongolian circuit, you think, is there justifications for it? I know at the moment Mongols are standing true with the roster they have, especially the pieces. Everybody is still quite young, still relatively inexperienced in terms of this level of tournament. So yeah, maybe people are jumping on a little too early and being like, hey, get this guy gone. I think there's a lot of conversation around Techno at the moment. But
rightly so, because as I said yesterday, he has been awful. Just awful. But I do think there is an element of, with the age, that means you constantly have to wait.
Yeah.
Like, when you're talking teenagers, and we're talking about, they bust in the playoffs quite often, and they seem to not be able to hit their shots, not feel confident, I'm happy to still wait.
It's also with how long everybody has played together, how long Techno's been with Blitz, for example, you have to be so certain that this is the right move to actually level up. Because, I mean, think about the players that have been through the Mongols or been through Mara and Blitz. Where are they now? I mean, most of them fall off the face of the earth. They don't get other chances at Tier 1 tournaments. Atox was maybe the best chance for someone like Cabal, for example. But Annihilation, Score, Bartak, these are people that don't get the same chances again. And so, especially if you become friends with people, you all come from a small population hyper city in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, you could effectively kill someone's career if you decide that you're going to make a roster change. I think there's a lot of there's layers of complexity, and even just making it to a tournament like this in the first place is already super sustainable for a team that's based out of Mongolia. So why wouldn't you give it time?
Yeah, maybe no need to poke it around, try and change things. No, you could always just honestly, this tournament to the next could be the event where Senzu in the playoffs plays like he does in the groups, from one event to another, and all of a sudden, no one's having this silly conversation. It looks so stupid in the rearview mirror when that happens. I think they have the patience to wait for it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes someday.
I mean, the positive is for Senzu is at least playing smarter and has been getting smarter as a playmaking type player. Doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes, but that's at least a positive I can draw for him as someone that hopes to get more of that time to develop. There's incremental changes happening, I think, just in terms of his form and his decision making.
Yeah. All right. I think we talked about who they're playing, but we haven't really given them any time of day. Na'Vi.
Yeah.
What are their odds really at this event? Like, where do you have them?
Well, to beat Vitality or to win the event?
I mean, if they do one, the other one's on the table, so I guess kind of both.
7%.
7%. That's where you put it. Yeah.
Yeah, that just an arbitrary number, really, but less than 10, more than 5.
Okay, realistically, what could go right for them? Like, I know, obviously, Copenhagen, they win off the back of JL God tier shit. To be honest, we didn't have a Vitality at Copenhagen. We had some good teams, but we didn't have this kind of Vitality. So, what has to go right?
I mean, we were all talking about, Donk winning the major, weren't we? Mainly. Because of what he did at Katowice the months before, so...
Yeah, him and his team show up sick and lose, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm I don't know, man. I've not enjoyed watching Navi. I really haven't. I don't know what it is either, because I almost feel the worst part is I feel as Navi has declined their their confirmation, or like their ability to conform to the actual roles that they have designated in the team, almost feels like it's gotten better. Like, I'd want to say that the fundamentals of how their roles are going to individual, like especially on T side, I almost feel like the way that roles interact is technically better, but players are playing worse.
Right.
I So I find myself in a weird position where like the macro I think still makes some sense. The way that they interact with each other, the micro feels fine. Just can people shoot people in the head? And I almost think as well that the timings they take are, they're trying a little too hard maybe sometimes to catch the opponent on timing. Like running through the edge, like the first second or the last couple seconds of an incendiary, or blowing the smoke, waiting for it to rebuild, and then running through it, for example. There's a couple of gimmicks that I think they've tried that have, limited amounts of success, but it's also a lot of what they've been doing traditionally also hasn't been working. So I think they're also adding that variety just to see if they can get an edge somehow. They're just a strange team for me. They're not.
Yeah.
I don't think they're actually playing terribly. I just think they're not playing up to the preparation almost.
Yeah, I mean, plus execution at the end of the day needs to be there.
Yeah.
And a part of that is hitting your shots, which is something they don't really do that well right now. Like, their best player is the role player of the team, like the true role player almost, I guess, in JL. Everyone else just hasn't been up to caliber as to what we expect or what we need from these guys. So Na'Vi are still going to struggle with the back of that. Like, they can try every gimmick they want if you still need to go out and win the fight. Unless you're facing a bunch of people who are looking the wrong way and flashbanged, you still need to hit the shots. So for me, that's been one of their biggest flaws. There's just no real star on the team ever that can be relied on. As much as the game plan looks tight sometimes, the gimmicks can be creative. The master plan, it all needs to be executed to actually work. So that's the struggle.
Yeah, it's so. And I guess the way that I'd reframe it is, everyone feels like they are playing within a box. Like, there is no flair, there's no flavor, I feel like, being added to the dish.
Right.
They've looked up how to make an omelet and they've followed the instructions to the T, but it's just how to make a base omelet. There's no, you're not adding cilantro, you're not like tweaking for personal taste. It feels a bit bland, I think, is where I'd have them at the moment.
Yeah, when it said season to taste, they went, well, okay, I can't be asked.
Yeah. The season, well, we gave up on this season.
Pretty much, it does kind of feel like that. But yeah, no, this is not the Na'Vi. This doesn't look like the Na'Vi that won the major, as much as their win percentage is sub 50% again. That's just them not being very good. To be fair, they weren't very good that time either. But it also isn't the Na'Vi that made the finals, because the Na'Vi that made all those finals was executing so perfectly and had the right idea every time. And it was a bit, and also individuals were a bit sharper. Like, we got more from Imma, more from Bit. I mean, not that much more from Wonderful, but, we got a decent level out of the rifle players.
Hey, at the very least, what I will say, Wonderful is keeping his head above water.
Oh yeah, when they struggle and lose, he's still 1.07.
He's still
when
pretty.
They're winning, he's 1.07. Like, he's just fine all the time this year. You can give him that credit, but the rest of the team needs to be there for them to replicate that sort of success they had last year. Doesn't seem to be there. The conversation is, of course, when are we making roster changes? What are we doing? Do we bring academy kids up? Like, what? There's been a lot of yapping about that. I've heard rumors there's like orgs looking to come back into CS just by buying out Na'Vi Junior. That would be interesting, especially if Na'Vi choose to not make those upgrades, make the change themselves. Go the Spirit route. We had this great productive academy that won a bunch of shit. Just slowly let it fizzle out.
Let's just give it to a competitor. Why don't we? Yeah. Great.
Why not? Why not? So yeah, hopefully they can figure that out. I kind of hope this goes terribly. They get crushed and then they take a look in the mirror. Like, if it's even a close loss, They might be like, oh, we were this close. If only we didn't have the number one team. But I hope they get crushed just so they make changes.
Sure.
No offense.
Yeah,
But
just,
alright.
look at some of the people that are on that academy team and go, yeah, let's actually take that risk. Or, hey, simple, you've been playing pretty good, want to come back?
Yeah, there's a number of things they could do. There are a number of
course.
things, relatively inexpensive things as well they could do. So, yeah, hopefully they bear that in mind. But yeah, I don't know about these last two teams. I mean, MongolZ, we basically talked them to death, just talking about Spirit, really,
Yeah.
during the Spirit section. And Pain is, we touched on what they need. It's pretty unexpected, pretty unpredictable.
Yeah,
Unreliable, I guess, is the win con that they need right now.
it's too reliant on the 3-letter players on the team. NQZ, DGT, both of them are
DVD,
if they
BGZ,
yeah, I guess
SNW?
DVD. Nah, Snow is not who people think he is. He's had a really bad year, and he just
horrendous. Yeah,
the whole transition. To be honest, even the addition of David in the first place, it felt like it had a very adverse effect on Snow. He needs stability.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll just simply take time.
Maybe he's a kid still. We'll see.
Yeah, of course.
Still fresh and pure as the fallen snow. There we go. It all makes sense. But all right. Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up there. No need to go too in depth about only 8 teams, 4 picks. But yeah, that's probably the summer season as far as the double swing's concerned. Going into the break, currently you have a 5 or 6 point lead. I think 6 point lead still before this event plays out. And obviously, seeing as I've got the best picks, it's going to change. Fingers crossed, no upsets. But yeah, leave a comment on your thoughts on these picks, these teams, the bracket, how it's lined up. I'll be curious to find out what all the experts actually think about this. Oh yeah, sub for more. And remember that members get access to more content and rights, which apparently people love. So, all right, goodbye.